For those of you wanting to see vintage audio gear, you're in luck. I have a turntable that was shipped in by a viewer. He tried to service this one himself and ran into some difficulties, so he offered it to send it to me and see whether I can get it working. Let's take a look. I have here a Technics SL10. This is a porch lock direct drive linear tracking turntable with the rare as hen's teeth moving coil cartridge. And the owner of this one tried to service it himself and tried to change belts and lubricate it, and it's now not working apparently. So well, first of all, try it out and see what's going on with it. So I'll take off tape and stuff he put on to hold things intact while it was being shipped. Spindle adapter seems to be popping up. We'll just lock it down. Alright, turn this thing on and see what it does. Okay, first of all, the case is not locking shut. This should snap shut. There's a tab on the side here that you push to open it up, I think. Oh, might help if I plug it in. Oh! Okay, got power. Let's just see what happens when I push start. Well, it may have at one point had the rare as hen's teeth moving coil pickup, but I don't see a needle, a stylus on this one. It's missing, so that cartridge is foobar. I don't see any sign of it either in the case, but the arm was not, the tone arm had not been returned to its rest position, and it was not locked in place when it was shipped by pushing the lock lever over, which prevents the tone arm from dropping. So I get the sneaking suspicion as during transport, when this thing was bouncing around, this tone arm was slapping down on the platter and has broken it. This is actually an optical blocking sheet for when you're playing records that are transparent records. That's what this is for. But it doesn't even attempt to start up. It's like it's not closing properly. So let's investigate as to why it's not even attempting to turn. I do have a temporary cartridge I can put on this for playing it back once I get the unit itself working, but it's not even starting. Let's start out by opening up the unit itself. There are wires that go through here that connect the upper part of the mechanism with the lower part. And we'll remove the screws that hold the cover in place. When doing this, be sure you have something behind the turntable so you can lay it down so that there's no stress put on the wires. I've got a box sitting in behind here to hold up, and it's stuck in below one of the little feet here, right, to prop it up. That way, once you've removed the back, you can work on this. I got to take this off because there's a switch in here that activates when this is closed, and a sneaking suspicion the switch is probably in the wrong position, and that's why it's not starting up. But we'll open this up and see. A dead giveaway it wasn't put together properly, or the wires. They're not supposed to be sticking out there. They actually go in behind a hinge. You notice that there are sensors here. There are, I don't know if those are the photo transistors or the photodiodes, but there are optical sensors here which line up with sensors or holes in the turntable. This is what's used to determine the size of the record for speed and for where the tone arm drops. And you can select the record speed manually with the record speed selector, or automatic. It will detect if it's a 12-inch record, it will play it at 33, and if it's a 7-inch record, it will play it at 45. However, there were many 45 12-inch singles that were released. In that case, you had to select it manually. That blocker, this thing here, this is used if you were dealing with translucent records, because record companies, of course, toyed with bringing out special collector's edition records that were transparent, and that caused havoc with these machines. You don't know how many people threw that sheet out. They didn't realize what it was for, and they thought, it's just a piece of paper, and they threw it out, and then they get a transparent record that doesn't play, and they bring the machine back thinking it's a defect. And we're telling them, well, when you're going to play those records, you're going to have to stick some tape, black tape, over the 3 sensors to make it play, or buy another sheet. And when they found out how much that sheet cost to buy, they were going with the tape option. Oh, that just fits over at tab. Alright, there's a switch right there. This is probably the switch that's not being activated because something was jamming it, more than likely the wires. Okay, will this operate the arm now? There we go. Spinning. And if I... and then the cueing arm, you can see that it's moving now. And stop. And it stops turning. So that's the problem. It was just when it was put back together, the wires were pinched. It was blocking the switch. These are tricky to put together because you gotta keep the wires on this side of the switch. It activates on this little ledge here on the back. When it closes, it pushes the switch in. So that's something to keep in mind if you're working on one of these units. So let's just reassemble, and as I say, I'll have to grab a cartridge from mine and just put a temporary cartridge on here so that I can play it. It's too bad because that cartridge is rare, very rare, very expensive. I would suggest, I've already sent the fellow that owns this pictures. I took some pictures of this before I started on anything because I don't want to get blamed with breaking the stylus on it. But from what I understand, this can be retipped. So the guy that owns this here will have to send the cartridge away and have a new shank installed on it and stylus. And that probably will cost him several $100s to have that done, if he wants to maintain the original moving coil. Just want to make sure that this isn't damaged. The back here kind of looks like maybe this piece here might be a bit damaged. Let's see if I can straighten that up with a pair of pliers. Just try to straighten that up just a bit so that that little switch can poke through there and make contact with the base when it's closed. And now the fun part, reassemble. So the wire goes through like that, and then the other side is the same. This lifts up, and this is the tricky part, getting these wires in where they belong, because there's not a lot of room here, but the wires will slip in there, and this will hold them in place in the little track so that they're out of the way for the switches, like that, for the switch. So now the wires are in place. making sure that the switch here protrudes through the back of it. That's the key, is that the switch protrudes through the back so that it will activate when the cover is closed. So I'm going to have to press that switch. Just looking for my little dental pick here. I can depress the switch so that I can get it through the hole on the cover as I put the cover in place. There we go. Now you see the switch is sticking out. I can now put the screws back in. There we go. Okay, now I can kind of set this thing back down and put the screws back in to hold the cover on. This is the fun part. Gotta kind of hold this in place and put the screws in while I'm holding it in place. Always lots of fun. If only I had a third hand. Now I can close the lid down and put the last two screws in, and then we can test this beast. Well, at least put it through the motions. I'll have to go and steal a cartridge off of my SL10 so that I can play it. And this one I'm going to let it play through beginning to end, just to make sure that there's no issues as it's playing. Okay, the unit's plugged in. I'll just throw a record on it right now just to make sure that it goes through the motions. Oh, gotta set that in the right place. It's gotta sit into the spring. There we go. Alright, that holds it open. We'll just put a record on here. And then hit start. Yeah, that should be playing. Let me go get a new cartridge for it and we'll try it out. Guess I'll lock it in place to do this. Just gonna spin out the screw here. A shorter screwdriver would probably make things a little bit easier on this type. On my turntable it's no problem because I got a conventional arm. I just turn the screw and it pops right out. Okay, now I can unplug the old cartridge and plug my test cartridge in. Mine's not in great shape either. If you see the needle looks like it's bent, that's just from playing records, believe it or not. This needle's never been damaged or anything, but look at the shank on mine. It's kind of bending over a bit. That's just from the drag of playing records, believe it or not, because it's pretty old. This cartridge is probably, I don't know, well, at least I can replace the needle on this one, but this cartridge is very old. It's an old Audio Technica. I've had it for years. Okay, let's just give this unit a try. This lid doesn't seem to be, you know, the little locks on here that lock this in place, I think, are broken. Oh well. Anyway, let's just see whether it plays. Start. There it is, it's playing. I'm going to let this play through this entire record and make sure it plays end to end. It appears that we have a problem, Houston. The linear skating, linear block appears to be stuck. Yeah, okay. I guess this means I have to take this thing apart again and see why it's stuck. Before doing that, I will remove my cartridge so that my cartridge doesn't get damaged. Put it out of the way for safekeeping. And now we start all over again and see why this unit is jamming. Now, since this time I know that the wires aren't pinched at the back, I'm going to try and take this apart if I can. I'm going to try and get the base off here without having to remove it. I should be able to get this thing far enough back that I can remove this base by just removing the screws without actually having to take it all apart. Now that I got the wires in place. The reason I had to take it apart before is that I was suspecting I could see the wires weren't put in the right place from when it was together. I could see wires sticking out, and I could see that little switch. So I kind of knew what the problem was before going in, so I had to take the lid off. But I'm going to try and get into this time without removing the lid because it is a lot of work. And I should be able to do it from here. Let's see why this thing's sticking. And of course, for testing, we gotta block the light. So I blocked it and had the tone arm moving over, and it's jammed like it's hitting something. So I've got it at the point where it is jammed, and hopefully I'll be able to see what's causing this problem without having to take this thing all the way apart again. Okay, where are we jamming? Something under here maybe. Or under here. I'm going to remove the circuit board. We'll take a look under the circuit board here and see what is causing this thing to stick, because it does not want to move at all. Don't worry, the power is off. I think maybe when it was reassembled, the slide here wasn't all the way out like that. This slide was all the way back like this. And so it was causing it to bind. That has to be all the way out like that, and then the circuit board fits in place. That should hopefully solve the problem. Okay, I'm just going to replace some of this tape that holds down the wires, including the piece over here, because I don't want this wire to get caught and pinched on anything. So we'll just stuff a new piece of tape in here. Okay, now to reattach the front cover, I'm just going to make sure that my tone arm is clear from the side here so I don't have anything jamming it. Now this piece here, it has to be inside like that. And what holds it in place, believe it or not, like when it came in it was like that. But what holds this in place is it's up against the top cover here. The top cover prevents this piece from slipping through. Piece of the cover right there. So make sure that that's pushed in like that when you put the bottom cover back on after servicing. And you'll see that the cover here stops that from moving out, you see? So once you get the bottom cover back in, we got to make sure that we reset that switch again, right? like that. Make sure all the screws and everything are, all the wires and so forth are pushed in before you tighten down the top. So I'm going to let it play through and see if it plays beginning to end, but I think that noise that we're hearing is the actual motor itself. The little DC motor is starting to get a bit noisy. It's certainly not the actual gears. They've got lots of lubricant on them. It's not the belt that's slipping. I think that's just the motor itself. Okay, the record's playing through now. It's played through from beginning to end. We'll let it end here and then watch it return, and I'm going to play it a few more times just to make sure that everything is good on it. That's some dirt on the record. So much for my needle, my stylus. Remember, this is my stylus that I'm running on here now. Oh well, that's an old record. It's the only thing I can play really without getting a copyright match, so I pretty much have to play this old hacked up record from the 1973 Langley Secondary High School Band, a high school and concert band. Okay, there it's at the end, and it should pick up and return. It's about as quiet as it's been all day. Excellent. Let's we'll start it again. Gonna let it play through again, but a few more times, and I'll be pretty satisfied that this one's fixed. There we go. So SL10. When you service these things, make sure you address the wires properly. Don't have any wires sticking out where they're not supposed to be, because they will jam things up. And be sure you get that arm cover in place before putting the bottom cover on, or the top cover on. The bottom of the top cover. How's that sound? Anyway, yeah, I think this one, it's about as good as I'm going to get this. It's not in great shape, this unit itself. Looks like it's been abused. For what this turntable cost when it was new, that's almost a crime that it's in the shape that it's in. Scratches all over it and big gouges and so forth. I've seen some of these units that are in like pristine condition, and this one is certainly not one of them, but mechanically it's doing the job. So let it play a few more times through and then I'll sign off on it. Okay, the record is played through now. This is like the third time I played the record through. It's playing it through flawlessly, beginning to end, and that motor was a bit noisy when I was searching out manually. It seems to have quietened down just a little bit, so hopefully that's not going to be an issue, because it is, I think, the motor that's causing it. I'm going to let the record play one more time before I get it ready to send back. And of course, put the original broken cartridge in. I just got an email from the fella. He said, well, was it not taped in place? And yeah, he had put tape on the arm, but the problem is it didn't hold. When you ship these units, there's that little lock lever on the bottom. That has to be engaged. That stops the arm so that the arm can't come down. So even though he had some packing tape on it, packing tape didn't hold, and as I guess when it was being shipped, you know how they throw things around the post office, right? The arm obviously slammed down onto that, which was sitting on top of the turntable, and broke the arm, or broke the cantilever off from the moving coil cartridge, which is unfortunate because, I say, These things are really quite rare. I don't know how much better they sound, to tell you the truth, than a moving magnet. They're supposed to have a higher frequency response, although whether they sound any better or not, some people claim they do, others say there's very little difference to justify the cost. I've never been able to afford one personally, so I can't give you my own first-hand experience on them. But anyway, they were expensive, and this one here probably can be repaired. It probably can have a new tip put on it. Actually, I shouldn't say I don't have a moving coil. I have one of those Bang & Olufsen's Biogram, one that I put a transformer in a while back that was given to me, and it has a moving coil, but it's shot. So anyway, the neat thing about this unit was, even though it had a moving coil, it has a preamp built in, so that you pushed a button on the back for moving coil and it gave the same output as a moving magnet cartridge, so you didn't have to have a moving coil preamp on your tuner or your receiver or your power amp. You just plugged it into a regular one. Anyway, that's about it for this one. As you can hear, it's playing. Say this is the third time it's played through, and it's playing through flawlessly, so I think it's fairly safe to say that this one's fixed. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.